Thank you. Thank you very much and welcome. I'm Father Mitch Pacwa. Welcome to Threshold of Hope, where we take a look at the writings of the church, especially Pope St. John Paul. Before we get to that, I want to mention that today is the feast of another saint, St. Lawrence of Brindisi. He was a Capuchin Franciscan, one of the early ones. They were started in the 1530s. He was born in 1559. And he helped bring their order north to Germany. It, like my own order, the Society of Jesus, the Theatines, and others, were part of the Catholic Reform movement that was taking place since the 1400s and into the present. And he helped to go to establish Capuchin monasteries in what is now Germany and Austria. And many parts of those areas came back to the Catholic faith. Matter of fact, by 1650, 2/3 of the area that had become Protestant came back to the Catholic faith. You know, a lot of folks don't realize that, but that happened. He also became the imperial chaplain for the army of the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II. He himself led an army of 18,000 men. He didn't have any weapon except a crucifix. And they fought against 80,000 Turks because in addition to the turmoil religiously in Europe, the Turks were in an ongoing attempt to conquer Europe. You know the Battle of Lepanto. Well, he went over to fight them in what's now Hungary. And there's 18,000 men defeated the 80,000 Turks. This was one of a very important series of battles that stopped the Turkish invasion of Europe. Lepanto was one, and then this one in Hungary was another, till finally the end of their attempts was in the 1682 or 83. He later on was the papal nuncio, the ambassador to Bavaria in Spain. He was canonized by Pope Leo XIII, and he was made a doctor of the church by Pope John XXIII in 1959. And one of the things about him that's, I think, useful these days, as a military chaplain, we need good spiritual support for our military. They're having great difficulty coming back. You know, when they return, they're in many ways disoriented to the point even of committing suicide, and way too many numbers. And they need to have a healing. That they see horrible things in extremely stressful situations, especially in Afghanistan and the Middle East. And in addition, military chaplains are under great pressure from the government. A number of officers are being dismissed from the service because they will not perform same-sex wedding ceremonies. You know, the Protestant chaplains are experiencing this right now. The Catholic Archdiocese of the military is able to protect the Catholic chaplains, but oftentimes the Protestant chaplains don't have that kind of a structure, and they're being dismissed for that, and which goes against their consciences. So this is something that freedom of religion is, you know, at loggerheads once more with the issues of marriage and same-sex relations. So there's great difficulties, and we should pray for the Protestant ministers that God would help protect them and the integrity of their consciences, as well as our own Catholic chaplains for their ongoing work. All right, we are now in Veritatis Splendor, which means the splendor of truth. You can get a paperback copy by going to EWTN's religious catalog. Website is EWTNRC.com, or you can call 1-800-854-6316 in order to get a copy of this and read with us. Another option is to download a free electronic copy of Veritatis Splendor. Very simple. Go to our website, EWTN.com. You'll see libraries up at the top. Click that. Click where it says Document Library. Then type in Veritatis Splendor, and you can drop that document for free, download it into your computer and read from the computer or print it out. Now, of course, we want you to be involved. You can do like these nice folks have done, which is to come from around the country to be part of our live studio audience. We're delighted to have you. Another option is to send an email by writing to threshold@ewtn.com, or you can call our live broadcast, 1-800-221-9460. Now, call on Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, or and adjust that to your own time zone on Tuesday afternoons. So it's 1-800-221-9460. Or if you're outside North America, it is, or inside Birmingham, it's 205-271-2980. All right, we are now in paragraph 38 of Veritatis Splendor. And he begins this with a quote from the book of Sirach. Sirach 15, verse 14, where it says, God left man in the power of his own counsel. What does that mean? Well, first of all, this is something that the Vatican Council quoted in its its document, Gaudium et Spes, which is the church in the modern world. In paragraph 17, it says, only in freedom can man direct himself toward goodness. For its part, authentic freedom is an exceptional sign of the divine image within man. For God has willed that man should remain under the control of his own decisions. Again, that quotation from Sirach, chapter 15, verse 14. That God wants us under the control of our own decisions so that people can seek their Creator spontaneously and come freely to utter and blissful perfection through loyalty to Him. So there is this great mystery by which God gives us free will. Unlike the animals don't have free will. They follow their instincts. They follow the movements of their own environment. They adapt to that. And then they go on their merry, or sometimes not so merry way. But, or if you get caught in their way, like that poor man who was surfing and the shark gets in his way, it can be a little scary. But that's the animals aren't, it wasn't an evil shark that tried to attack that man. It's a shark following its own instincts. Nothing moral or immoral about the shark. But for us, we are left to our own free will. And we have a lot of room for decision. Not everything is forced upon us. Some things are limited. For instance, our bodies have certain limits. You are not free to live in the body without oxygen. You will die. You're not free to do that. But you can hold your breath for a while, and you're free to try that. But you can't live without it. So there are limits. There are limits, to be sure. But you do have free will. And that's what the council is saying. And this is one of the important points of the council. It is saying that human beings are to freely arrive at full and blessed perfection by cleaving to God. You have a free will to say yes to God or to say no. You can be like Satan in Paradise Lost, who says it's better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. You can make that choice. Milton put it so well. Or you can use your free will to say, no, I want to serve God and find the kind of perfection and peace and joy that following God gives, rather than the chaos and evil and disorder that comes from rejecting God. And it's always important. Look at the societies of the 20th century that rejected God and his commandments. They were free to do that. They were free to do that. What did it lead to? Try Hitler. Try Stalin. Lenin. Mao Zedong. Pol Pot. These folks hated God and religion. And what did they do? You see, I was just going back through some old articles about how Planned Parenthood gets furious at religious groups in some of the articles in the 90s. What are they doing now? I don't know if you knew, but a second videotape of them admitting to selling body parts of the babies they abort. It leads to a total dehumanization. So not only are they killing the children, but they're engineering it to make sure that they save the parts they can sell. Because as the lady who is one of the executives at Planned Parenthood said, I want a Lamborghini. Baby parts for car parts. That's where they go. So this is the choice that we must freely make. Whom will we follow? Will we reign in hell or serve in heaven? This is a basic choice. This points to what the Pope calls the wonderful depth of sharing in God's dominion. Remember, when in Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 to 27, it said, let us make man in our own image and likeness and give him dominion over the creatures. God calls us to have a certain dominion. That is not the same. And you hear some anti-church people say, oh, see, the Bible just says you can rob and rape the environment. It doesn't say that. It says have dominion. And that kind of dominion means that you learn to use it well. You don't, it's a fool who eats everything in front of him, including his seed grain. If you don't leave enough seed grain to plant for the next year, you're going to starve the following year. You have dominion because you can use your mind to think ahead of where your behavior is going to go. Eat now and starve to death later, or eat less now, save the seed, plant it in another field, and then have a harvest from which you get more seed. You know, that's thinking ahead. That's dominion over creation. And this is what we're called to do. We don't just go around and kill all the animals and get fat off. No, we learn how to do animal husbandry, to plan ahead. We learn to use all the other resources, the metals and everything else. We can recycle on purpose. The animals cannot. If they do any recycling, it's by accident. And in any number of places, especially where goats are brought in, they will eat everything. So, you have to, unless we stop them, this is where we can have a dominion and share in God's dominion. Now, when you share in the dominion of the great King, God himself, you also realize this world belongs to you ultimately, Lord. It is ultimately yours. And as you should do with anything that belongs to somebody else, you show respect for their property. Bad people disrespect the property they rent. Bad people abuse something that they borrow from their neighbors. Sensible people borrow their neighbor's tools or whatever and return it in at least as good a shape, if not better. When I was a Boy Scout, you went out and left the campground looking better than when you got there. That was the rule. That should be the attitude that we have toward the earth, to share in God's dominion. Human dominion extends in a certain sense over man himself. That's where we have to start. Keeping ourselves in self-control. That is something that is not highly favored in the present day society. Self-control and restraint are out the door on lots and lots of levels. When we become a society that just wants to consume stuff, take the attitude of the old bumper sticker from the yuppies that said the one who dies with the most toys wins. No, you don't just try to get as many toys as you can. You learn to measure out how you use and have self-restraint. That's one key aspect of all morality. You show self-restraint so that you measure how much you eat. You don't overeat beyond what you need. You don't have sex outside regard for the dignity of human beings and a commitment to them and for the children that flow from that relationship. You don't use things and trash the environment. None of that is acceptable. Self-restraint is called for on the part of everyone. This is a constantly recurring theme in the theological reflection on human freedom, because human freedom is described as a type of kingship. When we're called to be priest, prophet, and king, that aspect is being king, especially in ruling over your own self, your impulses, desires, and bad habits. St. Gregory of Nyssa, one of the great fathers of the church, wrote in his book De Hominis Opificio, paragraph 4, where it says, the soul shows its royal and exalted character in that it is free and self-governed, swayed autonomously by its own will. Of whom else can this be said except the king? Therefore, human nature, created to rule other creatures, was by its likeness to the King of the universe, made as it were a living image, partaking with the archetype, both in dignity and name, so that we are given that image and likeness of God to be able to share in the rule of the universe. But again, especially beginning with ourselves and exercising free will to have a self-control that seeks what is the true good rather than apparent and immediate goods. That's usually where the problem is, isn't it? It's like people who rummage around their house to see what they're going to get for Christmas. Because even if you do find out, oh boy, I got this, you can't use it yet because that would mean everybody else would know that you went ahead and found it. And in my house, that might have even led to you not getting it. You know, sometimes mom and dad like things to be left a surprise. And if you didn't, then you got another surprise. Nothing! So this, but you don't go poking around and using freedom in poor quality ways for what seems the immediate curiosity, desire, etc. You think long term and the goal of what it is to be good. That's the purpose of free will. The exercise of dominion over the world represents a great and responsible task for man. one which involves his freedom in obedience to the command of the Creator. We said in Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves upon the earth. That's the command he gives. Now, by the way, the command to be fruitful and multiply was not a math problem. This was a command to bring forth fellow human beings into the world. Other people who are also in the image and likeness of God. Unlike Planned Parenthood, who sees babies in the womb in the image and likeness of a chop shop for automobiles, where you go in and take the parts you want and sell them. That's how far down they have gone in their immorality. They look upon children as a stolen car. They can sell the parts so they can buy a Lamborghini. I don't know what those things cost. I think they're a couple $100,000. You know, it's more than, like, anyway. But especially to buy that kind of thing on the corpses of innocent children. See, that's a misuse. No, we fill the earth, we multiply, and fill the earth, and we subdue it. And it is the fact of life that human beings catch more fish than we catch of them. Even sharks. We catch more sharks than they catch of people. You know how many people die of sharks every year? 9. Worldwide. So it's always less than a dozen. So this is something that is part of our gift from God. In view of this, there is a rightful autonomy due to every human being. Every human being has free will. And you do have a certain autonomy. And the human community has a certain autonomy. For instance, we should be free to have a variety of different types of government, different types of political parties and stuff. That freedom is fine. And there's nothing wrong with that. So this is, so communities have that freedom, individuals have freedom. You are free to eat your vegetables or to say, like the first President George Bush, I won't eat broccoli. And look what happened to him, he lost. No, that's not the reason. But you're free to say, I don't want broccoli. Unless you were raised by my mother. And so, but you have certain freedoms and autonomy, and that's a good thing. And that's why the Vatican Council said in Gaudium et Spes that we have that autonomy. And that this autonomy of earthly realities means that created things have their own laws and values, and which are to be gradually discovered, utilized, and ordered by man. That's in Gaudium et Spes, paragraph 36. Now, that same paragraph also says, many of our contemporaries seem to fear that a closer bond between human activity and religion will work against human independence and independence of societies or sciences. And that's one of the reasons they don't like religion. They think that we'll impose things on them. But believe me, in general, it has been they that impose more when they separate from religion than with. And it's very simple to understand why. When you get rid of religious influence on people, then they don't have their moral restraint coming from inside. If you have religious practice, then the restraint not to kill, not to steal, not to attack, not to fight, not to rape, not to commit adultery. That comes from inside. Whereas if you get rid of religion, then all of that has to come in from outside. And you have to make more and more and more laws to control people's bad behavior, which is inevitable. Fools believe that once you get rid of religious law, everybody will behave well. But these are people who generally have not raised 2- and 3-year-olds. They don't know that you don't behave naturally well. You behave, I want it now. And again, go to our cities, go to Chicago to see how the imposition of external rules stops the murder rate. Getting rid of the guns, making it illegal to buy a gun, doesn't stop it, does it? You can keep trying to come up with more and more laws, and that's what the world apart from God has to keep doing. They keep coming up with more and more laws, and they end up, ironically, in their search for freedom from religion, they reduce our freedom constantly. That is the pattern of human history, and we see it going on now in our country as we get rid of more and more laws. Those of you who remember the sexual revolution of the 60s, I don't want a piece of paper from City Hall. I don't want anybody tell me who I can have relations with and all that. You'll hear all that stuff, right? And so now what's happened? There is, according to people in the academia, a plague of rape on college campuses. So now they're saying before you have any relations, you have to have consent forms. They're handing out consent forms, and then they ask you to take a selfie as you sign it. So you've got a picture of it. And, because people are using drugs and all that. And so they're coming up with more and more rules. It was simply better when you said, respect a woman, respect a man. Wait until marriage and have a commitment. The rules will continue to grow because bad behavior continues to grow. So this is what our freedom is about. That's why these are important issues. They do affect our society today. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll come back in just a couple minutes. I want to get your questions as well as those of our studio audience and emails, so please stay with us. Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, want to invite all of you to come and join us as well as these nice folks have done. If you can make a pilgrimage down here, contact our pilgrimage department. Their phone number is 205-271-2966. Or you can go to the website EWTN.com. And they will help you with information about scheduling of the masses, the programs where you can be in the audience, places to stay, places to eat, instructions on how to get up to Huntsville and visit the sisters up there. We'd love to have you come down. It's a lot of fun when you do, so please do so. All right, we're going to start off with a phone call. Hello, Dorothea.
Hello, Father.
Hi, where are you from?
Long Beach, California.
Long Beach, all right. I'm sure it's pretty sunny, nice weather out there, right?
Yes, Father, it's beautiful.
Oh, good. And what's your question?
Father, my daughter was married by a Protestant minister, and when she chose to have her baby baptized, the pastor told her that she did not have a valid marriage. Now, I understand. I wish the pastor had told her, look, you were married by the state. Would you like to receive the sacrament of matrimony and be married in the Catholic Church? But it was very hurtful to her and her husband to be told their marriage wasn't valid. They are very, very proud of their marriage.
Yes.
Very good parents.
Right. Well, here's...
And I'm wondering, what's the number of Protestants who are married by not a Catholic priest? Are all those marriages not valid?
No. Here's the thing you got to understand, Dorothea. You know, one of the issues is, for instance, the church recognizes that all the marriages performed by Protestant ministers are valid. The problem in your daughter's case is that she didn't go to the pastor. They could have done this easily, because any number of times when there's a mixed marriage, the marriage can be done in a Protestant church, and the primary officiant is the minister. But she needed to let the priest know ahead of time. There's just a simple form that you have to go through, but also the church wants to provide some of the care before marriage. And you know that, and in fact, what I would assume that perhaps the parish priest may not have been as sensitive as he should have been. That I'll warrant you. But it's a very simple issue, and he could deal with it very, very easily. He just wants to make sure. Well, I don't know what he thinks. You know, what I would want them to do is, you know, talk to them about, you know, the convalidation. That can be easily done. And, you know, then their own intention about raising the child. But your problem isn't so much with church law, I don't think. It's the way the pastor handled it. And I can't help you there. But I would go over to him yourself and talk to him and say, look, Father, this is what's going on. There's another way that we could approach this. Let's see what we can do to get some damage control done. That would be my strong suggestion, Dorothea. Okay? All right, we have a question from our studio audience. Sir, where are you from?
Huntsville,
Alabama.
Originally Buffalo, New York.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. Anyway, question is, why do historians constantly seem to call Herod's temple the second temple when the second temple was really Nehemiah's temple?
Well, actually, that's not quite correct.
Okay.
Nehemiah didn't rebuild it. It was built earlier. All right. It was the temple was first started in 538 when the Israelites returned from exile. The first group of Israelites returned, but they only put the foundation down. And then in 520, the prophets Haggai and Zechariah called for Zerubbabel, who was the son of the king, Jewish king, and he was the governor, as well as the high priest Joshua. And they completed it, the temple, in 520 to 516. Okay? So that's called the second temple. Nehemiah built the walls around the city in the mid 400s. Okay? We don't know the exact date of that. But so that's it. Now, but why? But your question is, why is Herod's temple called the second temple when it's actually the temple that was whose building was guided by Zerubbabel and Joshua? Right? Here's why. When Herod rebuilt it, he built a far more beautiful building. As a matter of fact, it may even have been more beautiful than Solomon's. And it was of exquisite work. Just absolutely fantastic. But the priest said he could build this so long as he did not interrupt the temple worship even for one day. So when they built the new temple, it was larger, and they built first the new one above and surrounding the one of Zerubbabel. And they kept on worshiping. as they built over it. The workers had to stop during sacrifice, things like that. But they kept building, and only priests and Levites were allowed to be the workers. And then after they built the new one over the old and encapsulated the old one inside of it, then they began to dismantle the old one, still without disrupting service. And because of that continuity, Herod's temple is still called the Second Temple. He began building it in 19 or 18 BC. Remember, the Israelite calendar starts in September, so it was either the 19 September or fall of 19 BC or spring of 18 when he started. And they didn't finish it until 64. And then 6 years later, the Romans destroyed it. Okay, during that whole thing. We have another caller. Hello, Lucinda.
Hi, Father Pacwa.
Hi, where are you from?
I'm from Jersey Shore, Pennsylvania.
I didn't know you had a Jersey Shore in Pennsylvania.
We do. We're only about 18 miles away from where the Little League World Series is held every year.
Okay. So what can we do for you?
Well, I wanted to praise you for your ministry and compliment you on your choice of footwear, boots. My question is...
Thank you, ma'am.
My question is, in Matthew 16, about the foundation of the church. I was raised Baptist, and I'm a convert to the Catholic Church.
Sure.
But where Christ says, ask them, who do you say that I, the Son of Man, am? And Peter says to him, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Christ says back to him, and I say that thou art Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church.
Right.
The Protestants say that upon this rock I will build my church refers back to the tenet that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God, not that it made Peter the rock. And I'd like to know why it has to be an either or, why it can't be a both and.
Lucinda, welcome to the Catholic Church, because in Catholicism it is both and. You see, even in St. Augustine's writings, that he speaks of how Peter is the rock, but he also mentions that it is the rock of Peter's faith. That it's not a choice either or, and you don't use one to exclude the other. We don't say that, well, I accept Peter and not his act of faith as a rock. No, it is a rock of faith. But accepting his statement that you are the Christ, the Son of the living God, as a rock, does not exclude Peter from being called rock, because that's his name. And a lot of times that same argument that you heard will be based on saying, well, when it says you are Peter, it uses sue Petros. You use the word Petros, and that's a masculine ending. Whereas when it says, and on this rock, it's te petre, a feminine, from the word Petra. And they try to say that Petra means a big rock and a Petros is a little rock. This has nothing to do with Arkansas at all. Nothing. And that is what they don't understand, is that, yes, there are Greek poems in which Petra means a big rock and Petros means a little rock. There are also Greek texts, secular texts, where Petros means a big rock and Petra means a little one. They can go either way. And why would our Lord change it? Because he's using the word Petra. But when St. Matthew translated our Lord's words into Greek, he didn't want to call him a Petra. They would be saying, you are Rockette, instead of calling him Rocky. It's a feminine ending. And all of that is a problem in Greek. Jesus didn't say this in Greek. He said it in Aramaic. And what he said was, ante kefa wa al kefa dinna. It's the same word. You are kefa, And think back in the passages like in John chapter 1, I think verse 48, where he said he named him Peter. Or it was better, he named him Cephas, that is Peter, Petros. That the word Kepha, what does that mean in Aramaic? It refers to a crag of rock. It doesn't mean a stone or even a boulder. It means a crag of rock. That's what a Kepha, and also the cognate word in Hebrew, Keph, is the same thing as found in the book of Job. And just as one other little point, this is not a common name in those days. There is only one other person known in literature to be named Kepha. That is a guy, it's found in a marriage contract on Elephantine Island. This is an island in the Nile River at the first cataract. Now, we had to read that stuff in graduate school. That's pretty geeky, but that's the only passage, or the only occurrence of that name. And by the way, that was from about 400 BC. So this has nothing to do with Peter. Jesus is identifying him as the rock, and he builds the church on that rock. Aramaic, there's no difference in vocabulary. Okay. One other little point too. Behind him, as he said that, was a 90-foot by 160-foot rock cliff. That was the image there at Caesarea Philippi. I have a question from us to the audience. Sir, where are you from?
I'm from New Orleans,
Please, why
Louisiana.
don't you sit down, please? We're going to get a good shot of your belt buckle otherwise.
New Orleans, Louisiana.
Good to have you here. Welcome. And what is your question?
Well, I'm concerned about the lack of respect people are showing before Mass and during Mass. You know, there's water drinking, talking. I see people chewing gum before they go to communion. And, you know, sometimes I get so burned up, I don't go to communion, you know.
Yeah, see,
You know?
let me just give a couple things. First of all, a lot of times people are not taught that it is the body, blood, soul, and divinity of Jesus Christ to which they are coming, to whom they are receiving. And you're right, they're chewing gum. Now, you know, I would like people to have good breath, clean breath when they come to church. That's fine. But Jesus doesn't care. You don't need to chew the gum after Mass. You don't need to be doing that. And the rest of us are there for Jesus, not your breath. And so this is something that I think that there's a general downplaying of the reality of Mass that has gone on by some theologians and by some teachers, and sometimes even the clergy in the past have done. I don't hear that so much as I did back in the 60s and 70s. But there was a downplaying of the Mass, a downplaying of the role of the priest, a downplaying of the dignity. We're just hanging out. This is just a meal. And it's not. The idea of the Mass as a sacrifice is not been taught much. And this is where we have to do, because you and I are older. So we know the way that we were trained, and help folks to understand. You know, we have a responsibility to come to Jesus well prepared. If you were to go and have a personal meeting in the Oval Audience with the Oval Office with the President, I would put on my best clerical shirt. I'd make sure I was clean. I'd make sure I'd act respectfully, because this is, you know, a very special. Well, the president is like the rest of us. He's just a layman. He's just one other human being. This is coming to meet the King of the universe. You show respect. You dress well. One of my friends, he's a pastor. He talked and talked about people not wearing shorts and not wearing immodest blouses and all sorts of other things when they come to Mass. He spoke about it again and again. Nobody listened. He fixed it. He turned up the air conditioning and they all wanted to cover up. And it turned out, well, in the wintertime it wasn't so much a problem. But it's to show respect for the people around you and to help everybody focus not on you, but on Christ. Or not to come across with the attitude, Lord, do you realize how lucky you are to have me here today? I could have been in bed. There was a game on, and I came to church, so, it doesn't matter how I dress, you just be glad that I'm here. Sometimes that is the implied mentality by some people. Instead of, Lord, I'm not worthy that you should enter under my roof, but you say the word. That needs to be our prayer. We need to learn the humility of the centurion and not the arrogance of Herod and Pilate. That must be our attitude. Ma'am, where are you from?
Topeka, Kansas.
Topeka, Kansas. Good to have you here.
Thank you. This is my
And
husband.
we provided a few hills, unlike Topeka.
That's right. This is my husband, John.
Good.
My question is, other than prayer and fasting, what can we do as individuals to help stem this tide of evil in our own country?
Great. You started off right. Prayer and fasting. Okay. Thirdly, we have to examine our own consciences on a regular basis to see the ways in which we may have taken on any attitudes from the culture. Fourthly, this is typical of what we see going on in the culture. They try to manipulate our population with emotion arguments rather than with logic and the law. The law doesn't matter to a lot of folks who are trying to change the culture. So the law of God doesn't matter. They want to manipulate everybody by how you feel about something. And one of the roles that each of us has is to learn how to use our reason carefully to think through the issues, think ahead where they're headed, and plan so that we can then challenge people to really think. Now, a lot of times, people don't know how to think. They don't know enough data. And that becomes the next step. We have to learn more about our faith so that we can do exactly as St. Peter said in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15. Always be ready to give an explanation or reasons for the hope that you have in Christ Jesus. You have to know why we believe. Grow in many ways. Some of us who grew up in earlier decades, up to the middle 60s and earlier, you just took things for granted because this was clearly an orderly society. This is what your mom and dad said. It's what everybody else said. You went along with it. It was a Christian-influenced culture in many ways. And so you didn't have to do so many explanations. You took it for granted, just like, a lot of things that you do with driving, etc. You take it for granted. That you don't drive, say, on the other side of the road, as if you were in England or something. So now we can't take it for granted. We have to be able to explain each thing. So we need to learn more. These are some of the tasks, and then look for the opportunities to teach them. Look for the ways. Now, you're going to have a lot of people in Texas, in Texas. A lot of people, that's the next call is from Texas. A lot of people in our culture who tell us, don't say anything about religion. Don't bring it up. And we have forces who think that as a matter of fact, the head of the Equal Employment Opportunity Office has said when she was being, put in there that sexual issues are more important than religious freedom issues in her policy. She said that. They really want to remove religion from the culture as much as possible. And so if we are that much of a burr in their saddle, I say stick them just a little bit more. Make the burr stick and hurt. In other words, know our faith better than we do and explain it to others. Those are some of the things that we can do. Now we have Mary in Texas. Hello, Mary.
Hello, Father Pacwa. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
My question is something. I have a nephew that's a wonderful person. He's very close to me. We're a very large Catholic family, but now since Mom and Dad have passed away, everybody's gone their separate way, not going to church. My nephew has a tendency, and he's not come out of the closet, but I think he's homosexual. He's professional now. He's got his home, and he let me know last week that he's got a friend moving in. I don't know how to approach this. The Lord has laid it on my heart that I need to talk to him.
Yeah.
But I don't know how, what. I don't want to hurt him because I love him dearly.
Exactly.
Father Pacwa, what would you do?
A couple things. First of all, you got the right starting point. You love him. That's where you begin. And that you cherish him. And one of the things is to ask him to tell you what is going on in his life. Have him, trust you enough. And for you, therefore, to act on that trust by listening attentively and respectfully. And tell me what's going on. When did this start? What is happening? And then after that, you can have the number of conversations. As a matter of fact, I'm going to recommend a book to you called Sexual Wisdom. It's by Dr. Richard Wetzel, MD. And he's also got a website. But in there, you can see some of the facts of life about homosexual behavior that are not brought up. And and you have to let your nephew know this is a high risk way of life. That your life expectancy in this community is 46 to 47. And for a variety of reasons, and again, Dr. Wetzel gives the scientific background, the various studies on the health of people who live in this lifestyle. And he can you can be well informed ahead of time and say to him, one of the reasons for the church's teaching is that this is dangerous because it goes contrary to the way human beings are made. It's not that God hates you and we don't hate you. We want you to live a good long life, and that's not going to happen. And here's why. And that there are ways for the church to help. And you may want to contact, again, before the conversation with them, contact Courage and talk to some folks there and see some of the wisdom that they might have on how to approach him. But again, start off with your love for him, unconditional love for him. Listen to him. And then in that context, give him the facts of life that he won't get in most places, including our government. All right, I want to thank you all for being here and bless you all. May God bless you and keep you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. And again, we have to remind you that this network is brought to you by you. This is something that we don't do on our own, but with your help. So please keep us in between your gas bill, your electric bill, and your cable bill. And we will be able to pay all the bill collectors who keep coming when you're on summer vacation. They're not. So please help us out. God bless and thank you.